Hi, y'all. This is Kate Campbell with John Broughton on Retrospectives on 3SER KC Radio.
The new album, 12 albums in 13 years. That's a pretty consistent rate of releasing product.
It's kind of scary, really. But thank you.
Well, to achieve that rate of consistency, particularly without major label backing, that must be something you take great pride in.
Well, I do. I feel like that we have truly done the grassroots thing, the independent thing, and people who have supported me and bought the records, especially early on, they had to search to get them. There was distribution, but not as easy to find. You couldn't find them everywhere, and I really appreciate the people who have bought the CDs and the records and followed me, and now, of course, they have a little bit better access because they can get them online and things like that. But early on, they didn't have that choice, so yeah. It's very rewarding.
I believe you approached this record in a different way to in the past, where you may have in the past had a set theme to work around.
I did. It was a little different for me. I just decided that I kind of, after I did my last record with Spooner Oldham, which was 2 or 3 years ago when I was actually recording it, I just thought I would just wait and relax, see what happened. See what came forth, and that's what I did. Some songs came, but the weird thing was at the end of it, I thought that they all kind of went together and fell into, it's not really a theme, but they definitely, to me, all fit together. So that was interesting.
Was it liberating for you in a way to tackle a project in this way?
It was. I really felt like I needed somewhat, I almost saw it as somewhat of a creative rest in a way, to not feel that I just had to put something together. Not that I've ever felt really that difficult. It's just, it was a little bit of a change in my creative approach, and I think it gave me somewhat of a creative rest. I didn't know that at the beginning, but I believe it did. So,
could you see yourself continuing to work this way in the future, and not take such a thematic turn?
Yeah. I try to. I think so. I really kind of want to. I have some other things that people are still wanting me to do. I have some requests for a live record of some sort, and people have wanted me to do a holiday record of some sort. And I'm not sure what I think about that, but I do like the notion of waiting to see what comes, not just in the writing, but I've been, very blessed to work with great musicians all these years. But I am, constantly meeting new people, and I kind of want to wait and see what happens from a musical standpoint as well. If I want to, obviously there's people I want to work with again. I love working with Will Kimbrough, but I think it's better if I don't kind of force something, but kind of wait and see what happens, And it's fun. I like it. I think I will kind of try to continue on that route. So.
How challenging did you find it writing songs that in some cases were inspired by some outstanding literary sources in their own right?
Well, again, I didn't force it. It was kind of like I read different books. It's just things I was taking on the road with me, things that people had recommended, and I didn't go into them thinking, not all of them. There were 2 that were requested, The Color of Love I was asked to compose, and as well as Sorrow Free, which came out of To Kill a Mockingbird. But everything else, it was kind of things I was reading, and when I was reading, I didn't think, I'm going to write a song out of this, I was just kind of reading and enjoying things, and then truly the song came out of something in that that book that was inspiring me. And even with The Color of Love and To Kill a Mockingbird, I actually thought I wasn't going to be able to write either one of those songs, because both of the books were so intense and compelling and moving to me. Basically, both of those songs took me 3, 4, 5 months to write, because I just was almost overwhelmed by the book. And in that sense, they were more difficult than the ones where I was just reading and letting things inspire me from that angle. And I think the pressure of agreeing to at least try to write a song from To Kill a Mockingbird and The Color of Love was somewhat daunting. But again, I was in a mode of waiting on things, and that's what I did. I just kept reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and the same with The Color of Love. I would read a little bit at a time and just kind of sit with it. And the books were so wonderful. I thought, if however this is going to reach me, then it will. And if not, it's okay. But again, I was taking my time reading them. I would read maybe only 4 or 5 pages at a time, and just kind of let it, soak in a little bit, and then pick it up the next evening and read a little bit more and wait and see where the connector points were.
Tell us about your producer and songwriting collaborator on many of the tracks, Walt Aldridge. It must be a great advantage having a long-time friend as Walt to work with. Well,
he is, and he is a terrific musician. And Walt, who would have known? But way back now in 93 and 94 is when Fame hired me to be a songwriter for Fame Publishing, and Walt was running the publishing company. So he essentially hired me all those years ago to write. And who would have known after all these years that would be such a creative and really, I just think that I just think he's a tremendous musician, and that we just really connect on a lot of points in our backgrounds and the things that we write about work, and but he just basically, there was no way of knowing back in 1993 that we were going to be looking at 2008, 15 years later, and still writing. And of course now he produced Monuments, and he produced Blues and Lamentations, and now this. So it's been very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. How does the songwriting collaborative process work between the two of you?
Well, I think generally, because we both do music and words, and so it's kind of interesting. We'll just get together, and we usually start talking about something that I had an idea about or heard about, and sometimes we do. We think, well, that's kind of interesting, and like the song Fordlandia, we first started talking about Henry Ford went down to Alabama and was going to build a town in Alabama around Muscle Shoals called Ford City, Alabama. And I had heard about that, and Walt is from Florence, Alabama, Muscle Shoals area. And so I just went in and I started talking about this Ford City, Alabama. Did he know anything about it? And from there, we got on the computer and we Googled, and that's how we found Fordlandia. And then we just wrote the song. I mean, who could not write a song about it? But that's usually what happens, We just get together and say, let's get together and think about writing a tune. And obviously, I collect different ideas and bring those in, and we start talking about them. And sometimes they end up exactly, well, another example is More Than One More Day, the love song. I actually brought that idea probably several years ago. I've had that idea since I read Joan Didion's book. And I remember us talking about it several years ago, and, we didn't write a song then. It was kind of like, well, I don't know, it's not time for that. hadn't written that many love songs. And then this time around, I still hadn't written a song and brought it back up again, and we wrote it. And we wrote it very quickly. So you just never know, you know. But that's usually how it goes. And sometimes it's, you know, I have a musical idea, or he has a musical idea. Since we both do both, you just never know what's going to come forward in the actual writing session. But very relaxed, and like I said, we just start talking about things, and that leads to another sidetrack, and then and usually we don't know exactly how the song's going to end up, but we usually get something. So
there are other co-writers on the album there with you as well. Did the process work pretty much the same way with them as well?
Yeah, most of the people that I write with, I mean, the other co-writers are all people I've written with over the years too. Not as much as with Walt, but you know, Mark Narmore was with me at Fame as well. We wrote Everybody Knows Elvis, and Kevin Gordon, who I've written with here and there through the years as well. It's very similar because most of the people that I write with, everybody does both and does music and lyrics. So it's very collaborative and very back and forth, and generally, you know, I can't think of the word, but it's just organic. It's very organic because everybody does, you know, everyone's their own writer as well. Early on, sometimes I would write with some folks who were just a lyricist. And when I write with a person who's more of a lyricist, I usually step up with the music part more. You know, it depends on where the strengths are. But everyone that I've written mostly with all these years, it's kind of collaborative, and it's whatever it really grows out of, I think, a discussion, and we just kind of go back and forth, and some person goes, well, you know, this might be a good chord progression, and we'll go, okay, and then, you know, then we'll start messing with words, and it comes out like that. So very, very similar. Kevin Gordon came to my house, actually. It was, I had that idea, Shining Like the Sun, and actually had a chorus that was completely different than the song, and I just couldn't get a verse. I just couldn't get it going beyond that. I'd written a chorus for had it for like 6 months, and we started talking about some other things, and then I said, you know, I have this idea, and I told him the story where I got the idea, and Kevin really liked it. And we were sitting at my kitchen table, and what I like about Kevin is I like the way he plays the acoustic guitar and has that strum thing and that kind of Louisiana thing, and so we ended up writing a whole new song, and that was very cool. I remember it was winter, and like I said, we were sitting around the kitchen table, and Kevin really liked the idea, and we basically wrote Shining Like the Sun. It was totally different from the way I'd started it 6 months earlier. So
wow. Downtime when you aren't thinking about looking for song ideas, or is it only when you got a project coming up that you want to work on?
No, you know, I don't really ever, it's just my whole life, I don't really ever search for ideas. I pretty much am just thinking, I just kind of I'm always kind of thinking, but not in a searching way. It's just since when I was a little girl, it's just, make note of things that interest me, I think. And so there's always stuff I'm thinking about. And if it comes to me, you know, I jot it down in my notebook, and but it's not a intentional search. It's just I've always written songs, and I guess I just pay attention, and I think, wow, that's kind of interesting, and then, you know, at some point I'll sit down and pick up the guitar or something, and the one idea will come to the forefront more than it already has. So I think it's more of just always kind of, I really don't really turn my head off. I'm just always thinking. But I don't see it as intentional thinking, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yep.
They're just always kind of floating around in there.
Again, the storytelling element of your songwriting shines through as always. Is there a hard and fast rule you work to achieve the effect of a good storytelling?
What was the last part of that? Can you repeat that, John?
Is there a hard and fast rule that you work to get across your story, basically?
Well, storytelling, I think, is, and I think my general rule in songwriting is less is more still. Sometimes you need to let the story tell the story. In other words, I don't need to, like Fordlandia basically writes itself. But you do need to let the story tell the story. I think you need to be straightforward, and you have to be willing to write very, I call it active voice sentences. Sometimes you don't have to tell as much as you think you have to tell. You don't have to tell every little, detail. I think sometimes it's what you're not telling. But you have to set up the story so that whoever hears it either wants to hear more or can relate it to their own personal story in some way. But generally, I think it's a very direct each line. I really, one of my favorite songwriters has been Chris Christopherson all these years, and as well as Dolly Parton. And both of those, it's very conversational, it's very direct sentences, and it's essentially letting the storytelling story, not me going, this is what happened in passive voice. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, yeah.
And I think that, in general, of course, all rules are made to be broken. There's always exceptions, but I think in general, I have to get out of the way and not be trying to force things and have too many words. I think always, whenever possible, take out words.
Tell us about the title track, Save the Day, and how those three simple words inspired that song.
Well, it was so weird because the quote is there on the album as well from this guy named Frederick Buechner. I was down in Mobile, Alabama, and I was singing, doing a benefit concert, but it happened to be held at a church, and I was sitting in the pastor's office before, that was my green room, was the pastor's office, and she actually had that quote, and I was just sitting there, and I thought, that is a lovely quote, the touch of another human being, and that really is what it's all about at the end of the day. And then when it gets to save the day, can be enough to save the day, I just immediately thought, wow, we use that phrase so many different ways. It can be save the day, which is turned into save the date. People send out, an invitation will say, save the date. And out of save, and then I kept thinking of words like savor and be in the moment and what really does matter in life and what does it take sometimes. Sometimes for different people it would be different things. But at the end of the day, what is that kind of keeps us going? And I just thought there was so much in those three words. And it didn't leave me. I just kept thinking about it. In fact, when I was sitting there in the show, I was waiting. It was about time for me to go out and start the show. I pulled out my, a piece of paper and wrote it down immediately. I almost knew immediately that that was something I should pay attention to. And so I wrote it down, threw it in my guitar case, went out and did the show. And by the end of the year, that's the thing that kept coming back around, and the tunes to me all, developed organically. I didn't know it at the time, but they seemed to all have that sense of, again, I think everyday, real stories, real things that matter. And then I noticed that I had the word day or days in every song except Color of Love, which was written earlier than the others because I was asked to write that several years ago. And I think maybe only one other song doesn't have the word day or days in it. So.
Yeah, I noticed that, and you've circled them on the lyric sheets as well all the way through. So you weren't conscious of that when you were writing the songs?
Oh, no, that was what was so cool about it. Yeah.
How much significance did you place in the sequencing of the tracks on the CD?
Well, all these years, I have usually done the sequencing. And I tried different sequences, and I don't know, I didn't necessarily think that any of them were working. And I told Walt, sometimes I have trouble getting Walt. He's very great. He kind of encourages me to, do what I feel is right and I feel comfortable with. But I told him, I said, I just don't think I've come up with a sequence yet. And why don't you put together a sequence that you think would fit together? Because I know he would think of different things than I would. And that's the sequence that Walt came up with. And as soon as he handed it to me, I knew immediately that was going to work. And I would have never put Welcome to Ray at second after Save the Day. But when he did that, it worked. So it was very cool. So Walt actually did the sequencing this time.
Now you.
I was going to say, I think, John, that it holds into account different. Some of it, I usually, when I'm sequencing, I think more about lyrical flow. And I think Walt thought of everything, musically, instrumentally, lyrically, and I think he just had a better handle on it this time than I was able to come up with. So.
You were lucky to have the distinctive voices of both Nancy Griffith and John Prine on a couple of tracks there. Did these appearances happen by circumstance, or did you specifically have them earmarked for those roles?
Well, almost as soon as Walt and I wrote Looking for Jesus, and we started recording, all I could think of was John Prine. I just felt like that was perfect. And I had been fortunate to meet John because his bass player, Dave Jakes, has played on, I met him many years ago now, and he played on my Country Twang on the Wire, played on Blues and Lamentations, played on the portable Kate Campbell, and Sing Me Out. And Dave had introduced my music to John. And John had even come to one of my shows at the Bluebird when Dave was playing, which was amazing. This was several years ago to me, because he's just such a great guy. And I just thought, I just felt it would be the perfect song for him to sing on. And the funny thing was, I told Walt, I said, I think maybe we should ask John Prine to sing on Looking for Jesus. And Walt said, can you get a hold of John? I said, well, I can actually. And I just assumed that Walt had probably met John all these years, and he had never met him. And so I called John, and John said John was able to work it out. And Walt was just like a kid. He brought his albums for John to sign to the studio, and we took pictures of me and Walt and John, and it was great, to be honest with you. It was just great. I didn't know that Walt was such a huge fan. All these years, I had no clue that Walt was that big of a John Prine fan. So it was very great. And then this past weekend, in fact, this last Friday and Saturday, then John asked me to come open a couple of shows. So I just opened 2 shows with John this past weekend. And at the end of the second one, he asked me to come out and sing the encore with him, and we sang Paradise, or Muhlenberg County is what I call it, but Paradise. And I just couldn't believe it. It was just awesome. So,
lovely.
And Nancy has always been great to me all these years. When I first met her, really, some of her fans early on were some of my earliest fans from the first record. And so I've opened for Nancy before, and I asked her to come in and sing on Galaxy 500 when I redid that. And the same happened with Fordlandia. I just thought her voice would be perfect on that. And I think it is. And so Nancy had some several tour dates, but again, I believe she went out of her way to come in and sing on Fordlandia, and I think it's lovely. I guess it was Walt's idea, but to let Nancy just sing those 3 words, some notions are, is like perfect. 3 words that to me just her voice is perfect on, and it's so whimsical to have her singing those 3 words on Fordlandia, in the chorus where he takes my voice out and leaves Nancy's in. So.
And of course, you've got the great Spooner Oldham on there again. So you're really blessed with some wonderful names on this record.
It's just been an amazing journey. I met Spooner now many years ago, and I never would have met him. I guess if I hadn't once again written for fame. All those years ago, and met him and Dan Penn and all these legendary musicians from the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. So, and Spooner, and when I wrote Sorrow Free, I wrote it on the piano as well, but I perform it in concert. Generally, I've been singing it with the guitar. But I knew that Spooner was going to be the only one that had that combination of a little bit of a gospel, because really the song I was able to write based on halfway through the book, To Kill a Mockingbird, the little Girl Scout goes to church with Calpurnia, the cook, and the hymn they sing in church is a hymn called When They Ring Those Golden Bells. And that was the point in the book when I was able to think, I think that made a connection with me, because I know tons and tons of hymns growing up in the church, and that was where I was able to start writing the song. And so when I got to thinking about recording it, I thought, well, Spooner is the only one who can have that little bit of musical, connection with me as well, where there's just a hint of that gospel chord thing, if you listen to what Spooner's doing, mixed in with true, Alabama Muscle Shoals, that mixture of soul and gospel music edge to it. And there was no other person. Who else would you call? He's the perfect person.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you've always taken great pride in your packaging and the cover art of your records over the years. Tell us about the artwork on this one.
Well, we decided to try to go, more green. That was our first goal. For many years, we've done double packaging, but we just felt like it was time to go back to more of a more green, a lighter digipack. And so we started with that. And then I called upon a couple of my friends. Susie did a woodblock print, and I got that notion from Susanna, who is the one who ended up took those pictures of me. Were just pictures that my friend Susanna took down in the Mississippi Delta last fall. I went down there to sledge to sing, and my father was preaching at the little church that where I lived when I was real little in Sledge. And it was a November day, and Susanna took her camera, and so those pictures are me standing out, in Sledge, Mississippi, the flat land behind me. And instead of doing a full, we just saw those pictures, and we thought that was me, and that was just the feel we wanted for the whole record was very organic. And so Susanna's snapshots, Susie did the woodblock, my graphic designer Amy, who I've worked with for a long time now, she did the watercolor, putting it together and doing the watercoloring. And then we thought about doing this for a long time, but then I wrote out the lyrics, so that's my handwriting. I've never done that before, but I wrote out all the lyrics. And in that sense, I just wanted to, again, I feel like it's a very organic process, the whole thing. And even the packaging, I wanted it to be natural, and I believe it's the most Kate Campbell, after all these years, just coming together, a mixture of all those different elements, along with the music, And I hope people enjoy it. I like it. I think it's colorful, and we want it to be positive as well, and I think it is. I think it's a pretty hopeful album. I think there's a lot of light in the album, as well as, there's some sadness in the stories, but I think that there's a very lightness, and so the kind of flower sunrise of sorts that the woodblock is. Some people think it's a rose or flower. It doesn't really matter. It was intent to be a camellia, which I mentioned in the song Sorrow Free, and they grow in the deep south naturally down in Alabama and Mississippi and stuff. So, but it doesn't really matter. We just like the whole notion of kind of a sunrise, and the colors and everything, to me, kind of went with the whole idea of Save the Day. So
I read where you were curious yourself to see how these songs would fit beside your other material in a concert situation. How's that going so far?
Well, I've had about a month now to kind of put those together. Well, it's interesting. I usually, when I come out with a new record, I'm able to then kind of go back and pull some songs that there's a bunch of songs now, and I've been trying to, every time I come out with a new record, to go back and then pull some songs maybe I haven't done in a while. And so far I've been adding some tunes which I haven't done in many, many years, like Moon Pie Dreams, because Back to the Moon mentions moon pies and Deep Tank, so I've pulled in those. And I've been doing Galaxy 500 again, along with Fordlandia. Those are my two Ford songs, and I think it's working. I've also, which I haven't done in a long time, and pulled in like Corn in a Box, which was from Monuments. So that's kind of fun. I've been leaving that out of concerts now for about 3 or 4 years, and so that's been fun to bring back in. So it's kind of cool. To me, the CD is very quintessential Kate, though. I think there's elements that you can go back all the way to the first record, Songs from the Levee, and there's still, I have a varied musical background, and I think that the storytelling and the quirkiness and all that, it's all on this record, going all the way back to some of my, Moon Pie Dreams and Levee. I think there's an element of those all together. I hope that there's growth. I think that there's growth, and I think I understand myself better than even way back when. But so I've been pulling in some of those older tunes, and so far so good. I've had to practice them again. I've had to figure out what I'm doing again. Some songs always stay in the mix year after year. Crazy in Alabama always stays in my live. People have just really requested that song. It's been very cool. So some songs are always in, and they mix right in with the new material, So.
And what's the status of international distribution for this one?
Well, it should be very good. The Red Eye is our distributor, and they have good, as far as I know, they have just as good as international distribution as anyone we've worked with, and we're very happy with Red Eye, and so I think that they should be available. Of course, everything is available online now.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so and we have a great publicist that we discovered last record, a guy named Peter Homestead, who works out of the Netherlands, and so he has been able to, as far as some, radio and all of, Western Europe, has been able to send those out to radio and press, and he's worked those well. So we're very happy with Peter. That's been excellent. So, I don't know. I hope that folks in Australia and New Zealand are able to get this. I know that Ira, my husband and I, have sent out what we could, and try to make those connections. So hopefully people who want to get it can get it.
Yeah.
So we'll have to depend. We're going to have to find out. But we feel very confident with our distribution. We like I said, we have been so happy with Red Eye. We started working with them with Monuments, and we feel like they've consistently tried to grow and work with the market and all the digital stuff, and they've been on top of it from the beginning. So hopefully that will continue, and like I said, we'll find out if people are having trouble in Australia. We're depending on our people like you and other folks to let us know if they're having trouble getting it. Yeah.
Now, just before I let you go, Kate, you mentioned you did a bit of Googling to research Fordlandia. I was doing some Googling myself the other day and found you driving through a drive-through biscuit store.
Well, that's my friend. I'll tell you what happened. My friend Susanna, who took the photographs of me on the new album, we decided several years ago, and I know I look horrible, but at least people know what it's like to be on the road. But several years ago, all of a sudden, we did a YouTube search. I think Ira did a YouTube search, and there's some video of me like at a live event. Someone looks like they took it through their phone or whatever. I'm singing, Signs Following, and we just thought, well, we might as well just start putting some goofy stuff up there so people know. We've got some other stuff. It just takes a long time for us to kind of edit it and get it through. But I love biscuits. Of course, biscuits over there are probably more like what we call cookies here. But, biscuits are what I have for breakfast. I like biscuits and gravy. And so one of the jokes on the road all these years for me has been like searching for the perfect biscuit place. And so we were driving through West Virginia, and that's where Tudor's Biscuit World are. And Susanna happened to be with me, and she had the video, and we thought, well, let's just go through the drive-through and have a time of it. So we did. And, Ira hates that video, but I have lots of people who like it. So...
Oh, I'm very jealous. We don't have drive-through biscuits here in Australia.
See there?
It's a luxury we don't have.
You don't have biscuits very good, but y'all have good scones and cream and all that stuff.
Oh, we have biscuits. We just don't have the luxury of driving through and buying them.
Well, you just need to come over here, and I'll just take you someday. When you get to Nashville, we'll go and get us a drive-through biscuit.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Here, John.
And you must be due for a visit down here too. It's been a few years now.
It has been, and I think we sent off some stuff for some of the festivals, but I don't think we might have heard back from one, but I don't know if we're going to get down there this year or not. We're trying. So any notions anybody has, just let us know. We definitely want to get back to Australia, and it's been there twice, and it's been a great trip both times.
Yeah.
We're trying. We're like I said, we sent in some festival inquiries, and we're always looking for folks to email us and let us know if they have any ideas for concerts or venues that we can hopefully get hooked into. Let us know.
No problem.
We like to do it. Yeah.
I might have a hunt around myself and see if I can send you some information.
That'd be great. That would be great, John. Yeah.
Fantastic, Kate. It's been an absolute treat to catch up with you again.
Thank you, and thanks for the good and insightful questions. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you very much for those kind words, and loving the record. Absolutely loving it.
Good day, as y'all say.
Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.